welcome to the Five Plan Partners Educational Vlog. I'm Jason Hatley, the Financial Planning Manager here at Five Plan Partners. And for this week's educational vlog, I wanted to update you on some recent rule changes as they relate to inherited IRAs. Earlier this month, the IRS published Notice 2022-53 titled Certain Minimum Distributions for 2021 and 2022. This notice is of particular importance because it provides final resolution for one of the big lingering questions from the Secure Act that was passed in 2019 as it relates to inherited IRAs. Before we dive into this notice and the updates it provides, let me pause for just a second and remind you that if you inherited an IRA from your spouse and your spouse was the original owner of that IRA, none of these changes, nor from the Secure Act, nor from this recent notice, apply to you. Everything stays the same. You're still able to treat this inherited IRA as it is your own and wait until your required minimum distribution age to begin the RMDs. The changes that we're going to talk about only apply to IRAs that were inherited by non-spouses. So having said that, let me give a little bit of background on the issues behind what we're about to talk about. Before the enactment of the Secure Act, which became effective January 1st of 2020, essentially all non-spouse IRA beneficiaries were able to apply what was called the stretch rule, where you could stretch the RMDs over your remaining lifetime. The Secure Act effectively did away with the stretch provision and implemented a new 10-year rule whereby non-spouse beneficiaries have to deplete the account completely by the end of the 10th year, the end of the 10th calendar year following the year in which the original owner passed away. Let me pause again here and point out that if you inherited an IRA from a non-spouse prior to the enactment of the Secure Act, again, that before January the 1st of 2020, none of these changes from the Secure Act nor from this recent IRS notice apply to you. You are still eligible to apply the stretch provision. Now, back to the 10-year rule that I mentioned. Based on the language of the Secure Act, it was widely interpreted that the beneficiary would have full discretion as to the timing and the amounts of distributions made during that 10-year window. However, earlier this year, the IRS published guidance that seemed to indicate that an additional requirement for minimum annual distributions would be required in addition to the rule to fully deplete the account by the end of the 10th year. This proposed guidance raised two obvious questions. First, will there actually be a requirement for RMDs during the 10-year window? And secondly, will there be any retroactive application for the years that have been missed since the enactment of the Secure Act at the beginning of 2020? IRS Notice 2022-53 answers these two questions for us. First, as it relates to whether RMDs will actually be required each year, the answer is it depends. It depends on when the original account owner passed away and how old they were at their passing. If the account owner died on or after January 1st of 2020, only the 10-year rule applies. There's no requirement for annual minimum distributions. In other words, the account has to be fully depleted by the end of the 10th year following death, but no annual distributions are required. On the other hand, if the account owner died after the Secure Act was passed and after reaching age 72, then both the 10-year rule and the annual required minimum distributions both apply. As to the second question, what about the RMDs that should have been taken in 2020, 2021, and 2022? There will be no retroactive application to this new rule. If you remember, in 2020, all RMDs were waived as a provision of the CARES Act in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And this recent notice, IRS Notice 2022-53, provides a waiver for all RMDs for 2021 and 2022 as they relate to this new rule. So any annual minimum distributions that are required in conjunction with this new 10-year rule will begin in 2023 and continue going forward. So again, just to reiterate, if you inherited an IRA at any time from a spouse, or if you inherited an IRA from a non-spouse prior to 2020, none of these new rules apply to you. Nothing changes with your RMDs. Only IRAs inherited from non-spouses after the enactment of the Secure Act are subject to the 10-year rule, and only those inherited from original account owners who had already reached age 72 are subject to the annual required minimum distribution rule. If you have inherited an IRA and have questions about how these new rules may apply to you, give us a call here at the office or shoot us an email, and we'll be happy to answer and help you navigate these new rules. Have a great day, and we look forward to talking with you soon.